Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a Rolex Batgirl stroke meteorite from AliExpress, an homage of course. So I'll explain what I mean as we go through. So this opening shot is showing you what I've assembled to make the watch. It's a normal case, 40mm this time. I sometimes like to build them slightly bigger than the real thing because I've got large wrists, but given that I give away these watches, I thought, well, I might as well go for a 40mm case, which is a lot more wearable for most people. I'm just running through the bits and pieces there. Little blue and black bezel, that's the thing that makes the Batgirl. I'm saying Batgirl, of course, because there's a Jubilee bracelet there, and the usual sort of Mercedes hands, and the little movement that comes, the little stem that comes with the movement. Here I'm just showing you the little dial washer, or GMT spacer it's sometimes called, which goes in between the dial and the movement. It goes in with the curved edges facing up, and it stops the gears binding or disengaging just through that little bit of tension. So next I have to take off the feet that aren't required. This movement is designed to go with this dial is designed to go with a number of different movements. So I'm just looking at the feet there. Now I've moved on to turn the movement gears to get the date wheel to shift, which will mean that at the point of shifting, the hands would be exactly on midnight. So I'll be installing the hands, especially the hour hand and GMT hand, so that they start at midnight. So I've taken the feet off the dial and I've put it on the movement now. And so it's time to put the first hand on. I'm using a little bit of Rodico now to pick up the GMT hand and just place it neatly at pointing at 12 o'clock. So that's on, and I've just positioned it exactly at 12 o'clock, and now it's a case of gently pressing on with the hand presser, and then I'll move to the machine. But it's at this point that I realise I've got a problem. This GMT hand is not going to go on. You can tell immediately that there's an issue there. I've even swapped the GMT hand to a different hand in case there's a problem with the width of that particular hand. Same story with the second hand. I've edited this video down quite a lot because, trust me, I had hours of endless fun, as the title of the channel suggests. Basically failing to get this to go on properly. Looks all right there, but by the time I added the hands, the whole thing just basically collapsed. It was fouling on each other and fouling on the indices, so it just was not going to work out. So yep, that's nice and neat, but I've cut out the bit where I've added the minute hand, and then it all goes to pot. Because what I'd realised is the hole in that dial wasn't big enough, and I sort of filed a bigger hole, and the jagged edges I left were fouling on the GMT hand. So here it is, I've swapped the dial, and I've put in a meteorite dial now, and I've put the hands on. They went up very easily with no fuss at all. And yeah, I'm just checking now that I'll see how my hand gets to midnight. The date switches, which is just done there, just 2 or 3 minutes to go before midnight, so that's just about right. Happy with that. Just making sure that the positions of the dials are right. Sorry, position of the hands are right, I should say. And here's a close-up of the same thing. You can see the beautiful meteorite pattern of the dial there. It's a sort of silvery colour. Well, obviously it's silver. Reflects the light really, really well with the uneven surface, and there's a nice little contrast with the hands. I think this is a Beautiful movement. The real thing, the meteorite dial from Rolex, is very, very expensive, even more expensive than the normal Batman, Batgirl, Root Beer, Sprite, any of those GMT2 Rolexes. The meteorite dial is much more expensive, if you can even get it. I mean, it's very, very hard to buy one of these things. And what they're like on the grey market, I've got no idea. They're really expensive. So now it's time to put the second hand on. And as usual, it's a struggle for me to show you putting the second hand on. I have to get really close. That's a times 20 magnification there, and my eye is just out of shot, so that's how close I am. And that's so I can see the little pin sticking out the middle of the pinion, and that's what you've got to get the cap of the second hand to sit over. I'm just using a bit of Rodico there. And again, I had a bit of trouble at this stage of the watch build. This second hand ultimately proved to be too narrow. Eventually I measured it and realised it was not going to go on. And I did the same with another second hand, and it didn't work either. And the problem with buying from AliExpress, 9 times out of 10 it's great. I think they offer terrific value for money, and nearly always you get a good product, a surprisingly good product for the money. Now and again you get something coming out that just hasn't quite had the same level of quality control, not the gauge it should be, and it just won't go on. So eventually I gave up on both these two second hands that I tried, and I went to a slightly more expensive package. I'd bought some interesting sort of shark type second hands, and one variant of that was this one with the red tip, which I thought would be quite an interesting addition. So, and as you can see from that close-up there, I did get it on, and the second hand is sweeping round, and it's pretty easy if you've got enough magnification and you're looking at the exact spot you want the cap to go over. So now it's time to case up the movement. So I'm just cleaning the inner surface of the crystal. You don't want dust or dirt or anything getting in between the crystal and the dial. That would be a nightmare, because once it's on, and you're seeing it, you'll see it forever. So I'm taking care to make sure that that's nice and clean. And the first thing I've got to do is take the stem out of the movement. So as usual, I've got a second movement holder with a little ledge on it, which means I can turn the dial over, and this little ledge is very narrow. It's just enough to hold the dial, but it's not far enough in to stop the second hand from sweeping round. So that's really easy to take it out when you got it balanced on that. I'm just making the point there on the screen. All these watches that I build, I give away. I've got enough watches of my own, and I give them to someone in the comments section. All the watches I've made so far, I've given away to somebody. If you like the look of this watch at the end, or even if you don't particularly want the watch and you just got something you'd want to say about the video, just leave a comment, please. Especially if you see me doing something wrong. I mean, I'm still new to this hobby. I don't call myself a watchmaker or anything. I'm not a watchmaker. I'm a watch parts assembler, I suppose. So I'm probably doing loads of things wrong, and if people see what I'm doing and they've got advice to offer, please, I'm all ears. I'd love to improve. So now, just putting the dial and movement on the case. And when I saw this video played back, I went back and cleaned that case. You can't see it in real life, those little specks of dirt that are on it, but I got an alcohol swab and I cleaned it all up, just so it was absolutely spotless. But as I say, you couldn't see it at the time. And the movement's in the case now, and it's a case of putting the crown on the stem that's provided with the movement, and then inserting it just gently. You don't need to force it, just wiggle it about, it'll go in. And then once it's engaged, and you can feel it turning the cogs, yeah, you can then see how far it's sticking out, and of course you have to cut off the excess. Now I'm just pressing down that little lever I've showed you in previous videos, just with one finger. It's very gentle. If you don't go too cheap on the movements, they'll all come up very easily. It's the very cheap ones where it can be a struggle getting these stems out. And then cutting it down to size and then reinserting it. Then once you're happy with it, you've then got to take it out one more time and then glue it with Loctite, just so that in everyday use, when you're turning the crown, you're not going to accidentally unwind it, and then one day find yourself holding a piece of a crown in your hand with nothing attached to it, and a stem sticking ever so slightly out the watch. So that's why you use the Loctite. And now I'm just putting the black and blue bezel on. I always make sure that I put the point at the 12 marker exactly on the 12. People think if you just put it on anyway, you can just rotate the bezel. But I did that once and put it on any old how and then rotated the bezel, and I could never get the point to be exactly over the 12. And I saw it all the time. And eventually had to take the bezel off and put another one on. Once the bezel's on, it's a case of putting the bracelet on. So the first thing you have to do is take off the spring bars and make sure it doesn't spring out like that one did. This channel is called Hours of Endless Fun for a reason. Some of those hours are spent looking on the floor for bits that I've dropped because they've sprung out of my hands. But once you've got the spring bar, just insert it in the bezel. Insert it in the bracelet and make sure neither end is sticking out. You need spring bar pliers to do this. And then once you're holding it in place, you then can, with your other hand, you just take the case and slide it over. Now it can take 2 or 3 goes, because you've got to have neither end of the spring bar sticking out of the bracelet. They've both got to be just hidden by the width of the bracelet by pressing in on the spring bar. So here I am again, this time making sure that they're inside the bracelet, and then I slide the case on. And by now I've swapped from the sort of traditional spring bar pliers to this handy little gizmo. I'll put a link in the description for all of the parts and everything, including this special set of spring bar pliers. You'll see why they're so useful in a minute. They're easy to use at this stage. I mean, you can use anything at this stage. Normal spring bar pliers are no problem. But at this point, all you're trying to do is get the spring bar to be covered by the bracelet and then slide on the case, which I've just done. And then the reason this thing is so handy is because it's so compact. At this stage now, when you're putting the second half of the bracelet onto the remaining part of the case, this thing is small enough to just fit under the loop of the bracelet. And that is just so much easier than those big spring bar pliers that have to be they're so long, they've got to go outside the bracelet and then push inside, and the bracelet stops them pressing together properly and all sorts. So this is just so much easier. And again, all I'm doing is just making sure that the spring bar is just evenly covered by the bracelet so that the case can just slide on. So we're nearly done, basically. There you go. That's the watch done. So I'm just checking that it's all okay now. And it is. So here's a better look at the overall watch. I'll switch to a close-up in a second. And there's a close-up. It is a beautiful dial, I think. It's off the workbench, so the lighting's not quite as bright here. It's just on my desk. But yeah, I think it's a nice watch. So here I am just showing you the functions of the watch. It's a screw-in crown, so to make it waterproof. And if you pull it out past the winding position and turn it clockwise, the GMT hand moves. You read the GMT hand against the outside of the watch, the bezel. And then if you turn the crown in that position in the opposite direction, the date changes. And then pull it out one more, the last crown position moves the hour and minute hands, and with them the GMT hand. So here I'm setting the hour and minute hand to noon, and now I'm going to push the crown in again. Pushed it all the way in, so I'm just winding the watch up a little bit. Then pull it out to the first extra position. And this gets to move the GMT hand if I turn it clockwise. And I'm in Australia, and this particular GMT function I've set to UK time, so we're 10 hours ahead at the minute, so I've got the GMT hand there set for 2 in the morning. The black part of the bezel is supposed to be like darkness, nighttime, so from 6 at night till 6 in the morning. So there you go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.